Kamaru Usman is one of the greatest welterweights on the planet. His legacy is so amazing that he might even be in contention for the welterweight GOAT, even passing GSP's legacy. Or that's what a lot of people thought. But if we've learned anything over the past year, it's that his legacy is extremely overrated and is nowhere near GSP's. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the dark side of Kamaru Usman, and I'll be talking about everything that he has done that makes him a fraud. First, let's talk about how Kamaru Usman is most likely on steroids. And don't worry, this isn't one of those moments where I'm like, oh bro, come on, just look at him. He's obviously on steroids. I actually have evidence that he is on steroids. But at the same time, I mean, like, come on, just look at him. It's so obvious that he is on some type of steroid. If you look at Kamaru Usman's body, you'll see that on his delts and his stomach, he has these acne-like bumps all over it. And it's definitely not just acne, because Kamaru Usman is like peak human condition, so it wouldn't make sense if he did have acne. So I think it's safe to assume that these bumps might just be a side effect of steroids. There's this steroid called HGH, and pretty much the best place to inject it into your body is your delts and your stomach. And again, if we look at Kamaru Usman's body, we'll see that those like dots are all over his delts and stomach. I know Kamaru Usman tells a story on Joe Rogan's podcast on why he has the bumps on his stomach, but he never mentions how he got the bumps on his delt, plus he could just be lying about the entire story. Furthermore, another side effect of using HGH is muscle and joint pain, and as we all know, Kamaru Usman famously has bad knees. He says that he doesn't run anymore because his knees just hurt that much, and he literally has to walk upstairs backwards because if he walks up them normally, his knees hurt too much. And the last piece of evidence on why I think that Kamaru Usman is on some type of steroid is that his father is literally a corrupt pharmacist. He has gotten in trouble for doing multiple medical schemes, so it really wouldn't be a stretch to assume that he's sneaking Kamaru Usman some drugs under the table. I mean, why wouldn't he? They're making millions of dollars off of this. So if we put all of this together, we can make a pretty good argument that he probably is on some type of steroid. Plus, a lot of athletes at the top of the sport are secretly on something anyways. And now let's talk about how Kamaru Usman cheats in almost every single fight. Kamaru Usman is practically a welterweight Jon Jones, minus all of the terrible things Jon Jones has done outside of the octagon. In Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman's second fight, Kamaru cheats so much by holding onto the cage and just doing other scummy things inside of the octagon, and for some reason the refs just don't do anything about it. I'm not even kidding, but there's a moment where Kamaru Usman holds onto the cage like 5 times, and then Leon Edwards does the same thing once and the ref steps in. It's just blatant cheating, and it's another example on why it's very obvious that refs are told to act a certain way for some of the fights. And in the Colby Covington fight, Usman pretends he gets eye poked even though he very clearly doesn't, but the ref doesn't do anything about it. And then he pretends Colby kicked him in the balls even though he very clearly didn't, and again, nothing happens to him. And this is just a little trick that Kamaru Usman will do before he gets into the octagon. He'll purposely pull his shorts up a little, like to his belly button, so then if someone hits him with a good body shot, it looks like it hit him in the balls because his shorts are pulled up way too high, and he can just pretend that he got hit in the balls even though he didn't. And if you're a casual and just kind of like look at the fight and who's fighting, of course you're going to assume that Colby Covington actually kicked him in the balls, because Colby Covington plays like the bad guy character. But in reality, during this fight, Kamaru Usman was actually the bad guy. There are so many times where Kamaru Usman cheats in his fights, and we can't break them all down in this video because then this video will be like 40 minutes long, but he just cheats so much. Now let's talk about how delusional Kamaru Usman is. Kamaru Usman might be one of the most delusional fighters in the UFC roster. He says he's still the king of the welterweight division, even though he hasn't fought in like 2 years, and he's lost 3 out of his 4 last fights. Granted, he had a super close fight against Khamzat Chimaev, which he arguably should have won, but that was up at middleweight and he still lost. He literally just sits on his podcast, which by the way is the most boring podcast ever, and says he's the king even though he's lost his last 3 fights. If you just watch this podcast with Henry Cerudo, it's so easy to tell how fake he is, and he just says so much BS that makes the podcast unbearable. He also has a very inflated ego. Belal Muhammad says that he made Usman cry just by arguing with him on who's better between them, and we don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just going to assume that it is true since I don't know why Belal would lie about something like this. And I don't know if Kamaru Usman has said anything about Belal saying that he made him cry, but I might have just missed it, but I don't think he has said anything. And I know if you're a UFC fighter and you want to be at like the top, you have to have some type of ego, but this is just way too much. You can't sit out for 2 years on your podcast and say you're the king of the welterweight division. And if you ask me, I think he's going to get knocked out by Joaquin Buckley. Kamaru Usman is just too old and he has terrible knees. If Buckley oblique kicks Usman's knees once, Usman might just tap. But who knows, maybe Usman will pull it off, but I certainly hope not, because then that would just kind of ruin things at the welterweight division for the moment, because welterweight was in a terrible spot when Usman and Leon were champ, but now it actually has good prospects, so it would really throw a wrench into things if Usman beats Buckley. You have JDM, you have Joaquin Buckley, you have Sean Brady, and you have Ian Gary and Carlos Prates. Welterweight has such good prospects at the moment. In a couple of years, when all the lightweight legends that we know retire, welterweight might just be the new lightweight where it's just completely stacked. And now the last thing we're going to talk about that contains Usman is pretty much just talking about how big of a dumbass he is. And that is when he teamed up with Izzy and tried to make Dricus seem racist, even though what Dricus said was 100% true. Dricus says that he wants to be the first South African champion, and they both got offended by it solely because Dricus is white. That's literally the only reason, even though Dricus is the one who was born in Africa, lives in Africa, and trains in Africa. I mean, like, he lives in South Africa, and Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya live in the US. They don't even live there. It's just insane to see these two and all of their fans try to twist what Dricus said into something racist, even though Usman and Izzy were the ones being racist. The only reason Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya had a problem with Dricus saying this is because Dricus is white. If Dricus was black, there is no way Izzy and Kamaru Usman would care at all. But in reality, Dricus du Plessis is like more African than Izzy and Kamaru Usman combined. Izzy and Kamaru also kind of tried to bring in Francis Ngannou into this whole argument, but Francis Ngannou didn't say anything because he's not delusional and he knows that what Dricus said is 100% true. If Israel Adesanya actually beat Dricus du Plessis in their fight, oh boy, Kamaru Usman and Izzy would be going everywhere saying Dricus is a racist, he's not even a real South African. They would be digging into him, but then Dricus won and then decided to play it humble and forgive them. That really just shows you who the good guy in this whole scenario is. And that is going to be the very end of the video. If I missed anything, please let me know. Kamaru Usman has done a lot of dumb stuff, so I probably did miss it. And if you've made it this far, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to see more videos like this, I have a video on Has Charles Oliveira Fallen Off? And I also have a video explaining on why I believe and know that John Jones has been to a Diddy party. So go watch those. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.